Tribulata. The Roman idea to combine the infamous Plumbata throwing dart with the Caltrop foot trap was illustrated and described in the book De Rebus Bellicus from the 4th to 5th century. However, no proof of its existence survives in the archaeological record. Could it be that it never existed? And if so, could the concept have been viable? Today, we are going to investigate the practicality of this dual-purpose Plumbata by improving upon the original idea outlined 1500 years ago. In De Rebus Bellicus, Tribulata have 3 spikes protruding from the weight of the dart. While this keeps the mass at the front, the surface area is very small and is also a threat to the Romans themselves if they wish to advance over them. A solution presents itself if hooks are used instead of spikes, moved up the shaft, and attached just in front of the fletchings. While less inherently stable in flight, the contact area is greatly increased and should not hinder an advance over them.
Behold, very nasty Plumbata, or should I say Tribulata. We don't know whether they actually existed in ancient times, but had they done, I think that this is a viable interpretation. What I've done is I've taken my standard Plumbata from my previous video, go and check that out if you haven't seen it, and attached 3 expanded fishhooks to the base of each fletching. Now, in theory, what this should do is turn every Plumbata into a danger for the enemy if it misses its target. That is, it sticks in the ground, you've now got hooks facing towards you, so if you wish to advance against the Romans, well, you could get caught on your trousers, or your leg, or whatever else it might be. Is this actually practical? It shouldn't be much extra material cost. Fish hooks were manufactured by the millions in ancient times, and it's not that much metal. It doesn't take very long to whip them on, and you can use standard Plumbata, so you can add hooks to make them into Tribulata if the situation seems suitable. So, how does it affect their flight, and how effective are they at actually catching things? Let's find out. Right, let's see how fast and how far they go. 36 meters a second. 36 meters a second. 35 meters a second. 35 meters a second. 37 meters a second. And now for the heavy one. 34 meters a second. The average distance was a little over 100 meters. But this one went 112. So here we are at 100 meters. Now we are uphill here from the throwing point, so these would have gone a few meters more. But if I were an enemy of the Romans, I would be focusing on all the arrows and stones and whatever projectiles, Plumbata, that are coming at me. But now I have a threat also on the ground. And look at that. If you walk past it, it catches on your trousers, on your leg. When there are thousands of these thrown into a field in amongst a group of soldiers, I can see these actually presenting a serious threat. Because if you are charging, for instance, these are going to be causing you to trip completely. The shaft might snap, but this is not coming out of the ground. It pierces the clothing. To demonstrate, I'm pulling on the hook. I can't pull it out the ground. No, because it's not pulling straightly in line with the shaft, it's really wedging itself. That's not going to come out of the ground. That will trip a full man. Bloody hell. Oh, there goes my trousers. Doesn't seem like much really, but deployed by the thousands, I think this could cause quite a bit of havoc actually. Now I know this is a bit of an extreme example, but would you feel comfortable running through this? I know I wouldn't. But here's the interesting thing. It's quite unlikely to get caught on the barbs when advancing from the direction of throwing, and the opposite can be said when advancing against the throwers. So now we know how these can be used defensively, but what about offensively? After all, these three hooks increase the frontage of the dart quite significantly. Well, a pile of dirty washing has resurrected and is trying to attack us from 50 meters away. Let's see what we can do. Let's go and have a look at that. Interestingly, had the hooks not been present, this dart would not have made contact. It took a few tries from 50 meters, but as you can see, that this is actually an iron one, which is heavier. That barb is deep in there, and that's going to require 2 hands to pull out. Nasty. Got him in the arm, and it went straight through. The weight punched in and nearly made it out. Excuse me. Oh! The hooks ripped a big hole. I hope you appreciated those hits on the resurrected washing at 50 meters. Took quite a few throws to get that. They're not quite as accurate actually as my previous Plumbata. I think because these hooks distribute the weight a little bit more, it makes the projectile not quite as stable and shifts the point of aim. After quite a few throws, I was able to dial it in somewhat and get the throws consistently around the 50 meter mark. But again, not a particularly accurate weapon. But then again, it wasn't designed to be so. You
throw them against a charging horde of enemies, and those that miss their target, in fact, hit the ground, then become a potential threat for those attempting to advance past them. Actually, on the topic of the enemy picking them up and throwing them back, which applies not only to the standard Plumbata, but also these ones as well, I don't think it really was an issue. And the reason I believe that is, it depends on how you deploy them. If you were to deploy them against a very sparsely distributed enemy, then, of course, you're going to get far more projectiles landing where there aren't people, and they can, of course, if they're given the opportunity, pick them up and throw them back. However, if you use them exclusively to slow down and break up a charge, well, then you'll be throwing these darts into a very concentrated area of soldiers, and they will neither have the room to pick them up nor the wherewithal to think, oh, I'm going to salvage this dart and throw it at the Romans, when there are hundreds of other projectiles coming in, potentially maiming or even killing them. So I think it's really about how you deploy this type of projectile, which avoids the situation of them being thrown back and used against the Romans. In that sense, I think that these are actually best deployed in exactly the same way as ordinary Plumbata, that is, to slow down and break up a charge. In that context, not only are they less likely to be thrown back, but they're also more likely to find their mark, especially given that the frontage of the dart is increased by the presence of these 3 hooks, which we found in our target tests did actually make contact when the point missed. It also produces a ground threat if they miss their target entirely, which I don't think can be understated in terms of its effectiveness. All it takes is one person to be running past and just get their trouser snagged on that hook, and then they trip up, and then that breaks the momentum for everyone else behind them. Quite effective. The addition of hooks is a little bit of a trade-off, however. Without them attached, a standing throw will go about 130 metres, whereas these only 100 metres. That's because 10 grams of extra weight is added near the tail end of the dart. This not only decreases the stability of the dart, thus sacrificing some effective range, but also increases the drag a little bit and reduces the overall efficiency of the throw. However, I think that this is marginal compared to the overall increase in usefulness of the dart. The standard interpretation of Tribulata puts spikes protruding from the lead weight at the front. However, if you think about it, that can only be used defensively, because if the Romans were to throw them into an enemy formation and decided to advance on that position, they would be just as prone to injury as those they used them against. However, putting forward-facing hooks at the tail end of the dart means that if they do decide to advance on that position, they will not be prone to spiking themselves on it, as demonstrated earlier. That means that this interpretation can be used defensively and offensively. In summary, the addition of hooks makes it a triple threat dart. You've got the standard threat, you've got the threat of it snagging on clothing as it's falling out of the sky and causing an encumbrance, and if it misses its target entirely, it presents a ground threat, potentially tripping you up if you attempt to advance past them towards the throwers. Another thing to consider is that these are not optimized for this setup. These were optimized for my previous video without the hooks. So if you'd like to see an optimized version of this dart, let me know in the comments. I've got a few ideas about how these could be improved. The Plumbata Tribulata, as described in the book De Rebus Bellicus, might actually have never existed in the Roman army, given the lack of archaeological evidence. But what do you think about these? The pros certainly seem to outweigh the cons, in my mind at least, so perhaps it simply wasn't conceived of at the time, although small, thin iron hooks wouldn't exactly fare well after being in the ground for over 1,500 years. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do. I appreciate them all and try to read every single one. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider subscribing or becoming a Patreon member. helping to sustain and improve content down the line. So stay tuned.